Mini Wargaming Terrain Tutorials!
Matthew here from miniwargaming.com. We're going to bring you a really quick and easy terrain tutorial. In this case, I'm going to teach you how to make some really easy Firestorm Armada asteroids. And there's a few ways to do these. I've done them in such a way that I can create a lot of them really quickly, as you see right here. These aren't painted yet, but I'm going to show you how to paint them as well. This is just to make really quick terrain. It's not meant to be super detailed or super expert. It's just more to get the asteroids onto your tables for Firestorm Armada, or whatever else you want to use them for. So what you need for this is you need polystyrene, either the blue or the pink. We've got lots of it in our terrain room, but you don't actually need that much of it. A chunk like this will make probably 2 or 3 different asteroids. And I wanted to make about a dozen, so I probably used about this much of the entire board to make different sizes. You can see I've already been making them. I've been making a mess all over the table. So all you do is you take your piece of polystyrene, you make sure you have a hobby blade. The ones that can come out and be longer are more ideal, but you can really work with whatever you have. And so with this, I'm just going to break off and get down to roughly the size that I want for the asteroid. Once I have that, I just open up my knife. I'm wearing gloves right now because I'm going to be doing spray painting afterwards. You don't need to wear gloves for this part. And very carefully, you always cut away from yourself. You just start chunking off corners. And I'm not really going to try to be fancy because asteroids are just big rocks that have broken apart, and so they're not going to have this uniform look to them. And so you can see that as I start to cut it out, it starts to take form into almost a sphere shape. But we still have lots of flat surfaces. So I'm just going to keep chunking in to each of the corners. Once again, not really in any discernible pattern. And try to get rid of as many of those large flat surfaces as I can. I've also seen people use styrofoam balls from a hobby store. That could work just as well. I just happen to have the polystyrene on hand because we use it so much for other terrain projects. So there is a general shape. Now that's still a little flat, so I'm going to try to make it more spherical. Like I said, there's no real rhyme or reason to all of this. Okay, well that's good enough for now. If you like, what you can do is you just retract your blade a bit and you can chunk out some pockets. Sometimes asteroids have big pockets or little pockets all around. You don't want to make it uniform, so you just want to try to make it look random, which is tough to do because when we're doing any art, we always like symmetry in it, so I'm trying not to pay attention to where I put them. So there is our preliminary asteroid. We've got these nice bamboo skewers. I'm just going to cut it to a point. This is just to hold it, although you could use these to make the base as well. So I just cut into a sharp point, and I'm just going to find a spot and push it in. So now I have it held, so I could cut this off and use it for the base and just mount it on whatever you want to use for the base. I have these bases that Mike from Epic Duck Studios actually donated because he had a lot left over from all of his iBots. And so this is just a flying base that he uses for his iBots, but you're not really going to be able to have access to this necessarily. So you just create your own base however you like. Something, take a piece of wood and cut it out and stick it on it and paint it black, whatever you want to do. So now that is cut, we're going to go outside in the cold Canadian weather, and we're going to use some black primer, and we're actually going to spray directly onto the polystyrene. And the reason we want to do that is because we want the melted look. This one is still drying, but you can see that it's melted the polystyrene and given it all sorts of little pockets and made it look more organic. We're going to probably have to do this a couple times because as it melts it exposes more of the styrofoam, and so we'll have to spray it again. And after we spray it black, we're going to then dust it with a white primer. And then if you want to get fancy, you can start dry brushing, but I'm just going to stop right there and just mount it right onto the bases, and that'll be it. So let's go outside and start spraying it so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so we're outside, where it's snowy and windy, so we're going to try to use this area here just to keep the wind out. Not too worried because this doesn't have to be very precise. And then just like you would normally, you just spray on the black. Make sure you get all the angles because there's all the little pockets that you've created. can is almost empty actually. We should have enough for the first coat. There. It's already starting to melt the styrofoam. This is why you don't spray unprotected styrofoam normally, or polystyrene, because it'll melt like this and ruin your terrain. But in this case, it's actually the effect that we're going for, so it's good. Now that we have the black paint on, we put 2 or 3 coats of it, and still there's some blue showing through, but hopefully it won't be too much that'll make a difference. What you could do is you could actually just paint black over it after you've done the spraying, and that way the spray still melts it, and then you get to cover all those areas. But it shouldn't matter too much because I'm going to be dusting it white right now, so it almost looks like it has a bit of that dusting. And so I'm taking Army Painter Skull, or I was going to call it Skull White. I'm going to take Army Painter White spray primer, and I'm going to use that to dust it. You can use the Games Workshop White as well, but this tends to work a little better. But if you don't have this, then go ahead and use the Games Workshop one, or one that you find at your local store. So I'm just going to really lightly dust this. We don't want to cover it in the white. We just want to dust it lightly. This is a good way to prime your miniatures, as it actually allows you to see all the details. And so that's all I'm really going to do with this one. And it's pretty much done, except for going onto the base. I'm not too concerned about all the other details for it. Obviously I could spend more time and put more detail into it. Now that we have them painted black and white, I'm not really going to worry about painting them too much more than this. This is good enough for me. Like I said, it's just a quick method to make some asteroids. We're going to take the asteroids and we're going to mount them on the bases. And this is pretty straightforward. Now, like I said before, you could always make your own bases by just cutting off the skewers at different levels. So I'm just going to take some super glue. It's a little gunked up. I'm going to find the hole that the skewer was in. I'm going to put the super glue in that hole. That way I don't have to make a new hole. And I'm just going to stick it on. And that's it. There's an asteroid. That's a tiny one. Let's do a big one just for fun, or a bigger one. There's another one, and let's do our biggest one too. Find the hole. And since they're light enough, you don't have to worry about them tipping over easy. So there you have it. That's just all it really takes to make some really simple asteroids. If you have your own tutorials or want to show us the asteroids that you've made, go ahead and post it as a video response. This is Matthew from Mini Wargaming. Happy Wargaming.
Visit miniwargaming.com to see our videos 1 month early.